The team has given us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues. We'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. Victory Monday. I'm in my Victory Monday threads. Feels absolutely pristine to be back in the Victory threads. This was, without question, the most gratifying win of the season, and it was the most desperately needed as well. The vibes were down, the morale was off, and we hadn't seen the team from last year at any point this season. And although we got off to another slow start, that was overshadowed by the fact that this team did the thing that they did so often last year, which was show the ability to overcome adversity. The 5 turnovers versus Philadelphia last year. And I hate to keep bringing up last year, but that's the only reference point that we have right now, right? The slow start against Atlanta last year, 17-7, you're down at halftime. You rally back and win that football game. The slow start against Dallas in Week 18. There were so many instances where this team overcame adversity to show who they truly were. We hadn't seen that this year. We hadn't played a complete game. We hadn't looked like ourselves. And you know what? They took a trip to the left coast to strengthen the brotherhood, to come together, to focus on the things that mattered most: communication, detail, each other. Turnovers were emphasized this week. Your end result, and look, sometimes it's all about luck, right? The ball has hit the ground a lot of times in Commanders games this season. We just haven't been fortunate enough to recover them. Interception opportunities have presented themselves, very few and far between, but they presented themselves. We didn't take advantage. Well, they did in this game. But the most important thing that we saw from this team on Sunday in its 27-10 dominant victory over the Los Angeles Chargers is we saw identity. We saw a team reestablish who they are. We were aggressive. We attacked success. We went after it during that 2-minute period right before the half, after the Tressway roughing the punter. We aggressively attacked them at the end of the game. There was no thought of kicking a field goal. They went on a 99-yard, 6-minute drive to salt away basically the entirety of the game and then put an exclamation point on it on a 4th down with Jaden throwing a dot to Deebo Samuel. Who? Deebo. I'm going to just tuck mine in back of the end zone. God bless and good night. The first 4 weeks of the season, we would have settled for a field goal there and played it safe. And not to say that anything would have been wrong with that. To go up 13, forcing the Chargers to need 2 touchdowns, I would have had no issues with it. But the team last year wasn't looking to just give you a couple of scratches. They were looking to cut you critically, jugular vein, watch you bleed out. That's what we did on Sunday. There was no waiting for something to happen. We made it happen on Sunday. It was the first time that we saw this team look like the NFC Championship team from last year. It's the first time the team that we had aspirations about showed up and was accounted for. We felt the I won't say we. I felt the tempo yesterday. I felt it. We still didn't do a lot of things that we need to do moving forward. There's still a lot to clean up. We'll talk about those things throughout the course of the week. But just off the top of the dome, we still got a 2nd and long issue. We still got a time of possession issue. We still got a third down conversion issue. We still got shit that we got to clean up. However, we were able to overcome all of those things because we played our brand of football for the first time this season. We played like us. And for a little while there, I think some of us forgot what us looked like. We needed a reminder. And as DQ said, there was no bigger play than the Quan Martin. That is the play of the season to this point. You don't make that play. Quan Martin doesn't force that fumble. Marshawn Lattimore doesn't recover that said fumble. We're not sitting here talking about a 27-10 victory. I don't know what we're talking about, but it felt like we were on the verge of getting our asses whooped. That's what it feels like we would have been talking about today. 2-3, coming off of a fresh left coast ass whooping. You now have lost 2 in a row, heading to Monday night against a team coming off a bye, licking their chops. But instead, Quan Martin inserted himself into that dynamic and said, "Not on my watch." And from that point on, the switch flipped. This team came to life, and the rest is history. So that was a big win. It was, to me, a desperately needed one. Because that's the kind that builds confidence and it permeates throughout the rest of this month and into next month and has this team, maybe going on a little bit of a run here. That's the kind of win we needed. There's nothing like positive reinforcement. You can talk until your face turns blue, but the only thing that really gets guys believing is seeing the shit play out the way that it was told to them that it was going to play out. That gives ultimate belief. If I tell you to stand right here, the quarterback's going to throw you the football. If you just play the defense, stand right here, he's going to throw you the football. And then the quarterback does exactly that. You know what you're going to do the next time I tell you to do something? You're going to do that. Why? Because there's ultimate belief. You just told me to do this, and that exact thing happened. That's what last year was all about. Preaching the brotherhood and getting those winning time moments nailed down. And then when those winning time moments happened, they were prepared and everything that they practiced came to fruition. And they said, shit, this staff gets it. We saw a little bit of that yesterday. So before we move on to what DQ had to say on this victory Monday, celebrate! Biggest win of the season for the Commanders. That was a big road victory to get to 3-2 on the season. Now you're just one game out of first place. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Before we move on, let's take a look at the keys to victory, the game plan that we put together for Week 5's contest versus the Los Angeles Chargers. How did the Commanders do in the game plan? So you start with the offensive keys to victory. And the first one was win the line of scrimmage and early downs without mistakes. And I also said Bill needs to shine. Well, you know what happened? We dominated the line of scrimmage to the tune of 163 yards rushing, right? Almost 8 yards a carry between Bill, J-Mac, C-Rod, and Jaden. Almost 8 yards per carry. So not a ton of carries, but a whole hell of a lot of production, including 2 touchdowns on the ground. Another one through the air. And Jaden was protected pretty much the entire afternoon. He was not under duress. You want to talk about some clean-ass pockets to throw from? Think about the Luke McCaffrey 50-yard bomb and how much time it took for Luke to run down the field. And think about how clean of a pocket it was that Jaden had to step up into and launch that football. That was pretty much his day, most of the day. It was a couple of times he had to vacate the pocket due to a little bit of pressure. But for the most part, he was kept clean, and there wasn't anyone within striking distance of him as he stood in the pocket and delivered the football throughout the afternoon. They won the line of scrimmage big time up front. And they largely did it without mistakes. We didn't get in. We had a couple of penalties. Still some, like I said, still some things we need to clean up. You know, got down to the end of the shot clock a couple of times, took a delay of game once. There's still some things we got to work on. But ultimately, Bill shined. Bill shined. And we dominated the offensive line of scrimmage. And so that's a check mark, a full check mark for win the line of scrimmage and early downs without mistakes, and Bill shines. Next offensive key, the Jaden Daniels effect. And I added in and start fast. It didn't necessarily start fast. You down 10-0 in the first quarter, on the verge of being down 13 or 17-0 in the second quarter. So I wouldn't necessarily categorize what we did on Sunday as a fast start, but it was overshadowed by the Jaden Daniels effect. After the biggest play of our young season, the Quan Martin forced fumble, Jaden Daniels kicked this shit into high gear like we've seen him do so many times before, and it put us in a state of, all right, we got our GOAT back. Our demon has arrived, and he's on demon time. Once he hit that completion to Jalen Lane on 3rd and 16, they had just missed the connection the play before. He went right back to him. And once he hit that completion, it was off from that point on. It was off and running. And he never looked back in the game. And he started to shred that defense. He was on the move. He was utilizing his legs. He made great decisions within the pocket, when to get out, when to extend, when to continue to keep your head up as a passer, when to tuck it and run, when to get down. He was accurate with the football, as we saw on the deep ball to Luke, on the deep crossing over route to Debo. He was surgical. I felt the tempo for the first time this season. I felt our tempo. We got a too many men on the field penalty, which we haven't gotten all season long because the officials always in the damn way. Well, we finally were able to catch them napping with too many men on the field. We could see that was an exhausted Chargers team that hadn't dealt with this level of tempo. Nobody runs as much no huddle as us. Nobody. But to actually feel the tempo, which is what I was looking for. I wanted to feel the tempo. I felt it for the first time this season in this game. So the Jaden Daniels effect was alive and well, full check. Even though we didn't get off to the fastest of starts, that Jaden Daniels effect was real. It was palpable. It was necessary. And it dominated this game after the Quan Martin forced fumble. Next offensive key, reestablish our identity on offense. 3rd and 4th downs, if necessary, red zone, scoring, and tempo. I think we took care of all of those things in this game. 3rd downs, we still got a ways to go. We were 2 of 7. That is not ideal, right? That's still way below league average. It's below our standard that we've set for ourselves on 3rd down. So from that standpoint, we still got work to do. Like I said, we aren't perfect. We still have things we need to work on. But we, for the second week in a row, rolled the dice on 4th down. Last week, we were 2 of 2. This week, we were 1 of 1. So I love the fact that we're getting back to being our aggressive selves. In the red zone, we were 3 of 5, right? Staying aggressive in the red zone. We got touchdowns. It's, a couple of times we had to settle for field goals. One of them right before the half, which you ran out of time, or else that might have been a touchdown as well. So it's not like they were stymieing us in the red zone and forcing us to have to settle for field goals. The situation dictated that we had to kick a field goal. We had one drive that got into the red zone that we didn't finish and had to settle for a field goal. And I blame Chris Moore for that, right? If Chris Moore, that's the best throw Jaden Daniels has made this season, and he ruined it. So when I look at our red zone efficiency, I see 100%. If not for the half and not for Chris Moore's ass, we'd probably go 5 of 5 in the red zone. They couldn't stop us from getting in the end zone. Between Bill, and I told you, the most successful teams in the red zone in the NFL are the ones that can run the football in. And to have Bill jaunt into the end zone, not once, but twice, is huge because it changes everything when you can run the football into the end zone. So the red zone efficiency was there. We scored touchdowns. We did not settle for field goals. And again, we had to kick 2 field goals. Shout out to Matt Gay for making those 2 kicks. I get it. Both of them were chip shot nature. I don't care. Put them shits through the uprights. And he did. And then the tempo. I felt the tempo. As I mentioned before, I felt the tempo in this game. We reestablished who we were. We re-emphasized it. I love it. Check. And then lastly, execute in winning time moments. You had the football, end of the first half, down 10-7. You didn't execute in the end. You were backed up. This is a great punt by their punter. You got to give credit where credit is due. You want to take it a little easy. You don't want to do anything crazy and have the game flip on its head. We were a bit conservative. We didn't get a first down. We got Tressway punting from his own end zone. He gets roughed. We get the football back, and instead of us, figuring out how we can, stop the Chargers from getting the football, we said, no. Let's go be aggressive. Let's go get some points. And that's what they did. The 50-yarder to Luke was an aggressive shot. Then they got down there, and we ended up getting points out of the deal, right? Executed in that situation. And then at the end of the game, Mikey Samerstill, Johnny Newton, tip by Newton, interception by Mikey. We start our possession with about 6:40 left in the fourth quarter at our own 1-yard line. And we proceed to melt away 6 minutes of the fourth quarter clock, in addition to driving the length of the field and scoring on 4th down, opting not for the field goal, but instead the dagger to cap off a 99-yard, 6-minute drive to put this game completely away at 27-10. 23-10 would have been cool. 27-10 has a hell of a ring to it. It's the difference between Justin Herbert coming back in at the end of that game and them waving the white flag and sticking Trey Lance into the game. That's the type of time we on now. In winning time moments, we showed up and we showed out. That's who we've been. That's who we need to be moving forward. It was good to see that team peek its head up and say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still here. Now let's see it more and more as this season continues to progress. Another check. Let's get to the defensive keys. First one was the biggest one. Dominate the line of scrimmage. I talked about the Chargers' offensive line being in shambles, and it got worse as we got into the game. More guys went down. But Kai Becton, who was dealing with a concussion all week, and I said, let's keep an eye on him. He was in and out of the lineup. Their right tackle, who was already a backup, got hurt in the game. And so they had all kinds of guys off the streets and guys that should be on the practice squad on the field. We had no choice but to dominate. And we did. And we did. Still gave up some shit. Gave up a Justin Herbert 41-yard run, right? Gave up a few hits in the run game early, but ultimately we shut the faucet off. We got to Justin Herbert 5 times in this game. We made him uncomfortable. He still completed some passes. It's Justin Herbert. He's going to do that. They have receivers. That's going to happen. But for the most part, we made life hell for them up front at the line of scrimmage, which is where this game was going to be won defensively. Check. The next defensive key, disrupt Herbert and the timing of the wide receivers. I just talked about them sacking Herbert 5 times and hitting him and rushing him and pressuring him a slew of other times. They disrupted the timing of the receivers a little, but for the most part, those guys were able to get into their routes, get where they needed to be. And whether it was a Chargers penalty or mistake, or they just didn't have time, right? There's a play where they got the running back up the sideline, wide ass open for a potential touchdown. He just can't get to it. He's got pressure and he's getting sacked, right? His eyes aren't even down the field at that point. We got shit to clean up. But again, when you're able to harass the quarterback, change his launch point, make him move his feet, you got a chance to do damage. And that's what we did in this game. Check. Next defensive key, eliminate explosives and keep Herbert in the pocket. So I gave us a half check on this one because we still gave up explosives, right? We gave up the Herbert run. We gave up the Keenan Allen catch and run. We gave up the Quentin Johnston catch and run. Now, his resulted in a fumble, but we're still giving up big plays. I just talked about a receiver running down the sideline, unmolested. We gave up a punt return for a touchdown. If not for the, roughing the kicker, that's a touchdown. Like, that's an explosive play. That could have changed the entirety of this game, right? Like, we still got shit to clean up, as I mentioned. We kept Herbert in the pocket for the most part, but I told you he got away on a 40-yard run, right, which is not cool. So we still got things to clean up, but ultimately we did enough to warrant at least a half check, but we still got to clean up these explosive plays. We still got to clean up these second and long issues. We still got to clean up, the quarterback escaping the pocket. We've been hurt more by quarterbacks leaving the pocket this season than we have the running backs out of the backfield. Half check there. And then lastly, win on third downs and in the red zone. The Chargers were a little bit more prolific on third downs than I would have liked them to, at 9 of 16. So that's not where I wanted to see them be. Over 50%, not to my liking. I think it might have been 9 of 17. Well, whatever. Still more than 50%. That's not what I envisioned this defense being in the game. However, our work in the red zone, if Mikey doesn't jump off sides, would have been pristine. It would have been the exact type of performance when it matters most that we were looking for. We held them on the first set of red zone downs. They had to settle for a field goal. Mikey jumps off sides. It converts into a touchdown. But that was really a stop by the defense. And then you get down there again, and then they throw the interception. Remember, Quan Martin makes a tackle on Kamani Vidal at the 1-yard line. He doesn't make that tackle. It's a touchdown. We never get that interception. Quan Martin was huge in this game. Kamani Vidal tries to stiff arm him. He knocks the stiff arm down. He rides him down to the 1-yard line. They try to throw a pass on first down. It's broken up. They try to run the football on second down. We blow that shit up. Jordan McGee with a tackle for loss, but the D-line just destroyed that play. Now it's 3rd and goal from about the 3 or 4 because of what we've done on the first 2 downs. And now they have to throw it. Now Johnny Newton tips the football and it gets picked off. So you can't forget about what allowed us to even get that opportunity. But that's quality red zone defense. And we've seen that from this team going all the way back to week 1 against the Giants when they couldn't get in the end zone. We did it again against the Raiders in week 3. We even had a stop against Green Bay in the red zone in week 2. So a full check. Despite us not doing what we needed to do on third downs, you erase all of that third down success if they can't come away with touchdowns. The whole point of converting on third downs is to lead ultimately to a touchdown. You want to get points, sure, absolutely. But the goal is to score a touchdown. We didn't allow them to do that for the most part in this game. If Mikey doesn't jump off sides, they don't score a touchdown in this game. This might have been 27-6. And it's easy to go back and have revisionist history and just subtract 4 points. The whole game would have changed if they were down, X, Y, Z. They might have been more aggressive in going for it, et cetera, et cetera. Who knows how the game would have gone. But here's what we do know. If Mikey doesn't jump off sides, they only had 2 opportunities in the red zone the entirety of the game. And if Mikey doesn't jump off sides, they don't score a touchdown on either one of them. That's big time football. That is big time football. So check mark there. And again, you're going to win a bunch of games when out of 8 possible points, you get 7.5. Again, you're swimming in those waters. You win in convincing fashion, which is what we did on Sunday. When you dominate the keys to victory like this, you win, and you usually win in dominating fashion, which is exactly what took place on Sunday. So let's get to in other news, where we heard from DQ. Before we talk about what was said by DQ, let's get our look at the week 5 snap counts for the offense and defense. So as you can see, still not good enough on the offensive side of the football in terms of snap count. 59 total snaps were played in this game offensively. That is still not where we are supposed to be, which is why we got dominated on time of possession yet again. We'll be better. We'll continue to get better in that department, but 59 snaps. As you can see, all of the offensive linemen played all 59 snaps, including Jaden Daniels. So you have your 6 players with all 100% of the snaps offensively. And then Deebo Samuel, as we talked about last week, has taken the place of Terry McLaurin as the lead dog in the snap count of skill players at 78%. Chris Moore, again, I don't want to live in a world where Chris Moore is playing 60% of the snaps. Last week, it was 70% of the snaps. This week, it's 60% of the snaps. At least it's going in the right direction, but it's still too damn many. Hopefully, help is on the way. The cavalry is about to arrive, and Chris Moore can go back to being inactive on game days. I don't know if that's going to happen until we're at like full strength. Everybody's healthy. Then maybe Chris Moore can go back. Like, if you make me choose, give me Tay Martin. Now, Chris Moore is better on special teams, is my guess. But Tay Martin, he can be on the field for me. He blocks. He catches the rock. Give me Tay Martin. Zach Ertz, the quietest 31 snaps you'll ever see from him. I am shocked. This has to be the first time in a game that Jaden Daniels has started and finished that Zach Ertz didn't have a catch. He had 1 target. It had some hot sauce to go on it, but we've seen Zach make that catch plenty of times. He didn't. And Jaden, and I'm not saying that Jaden didn't come back to him because of that one play. He just never came back to him after that. John Bates, good to have John damn Bates back on Sunday. He was huge. And it's not a surprise that you have your best running back day of the season, your first 100-yard rusher. It's not a surprise that that comes with John Bates back in the lineup. I don't think any of us are surprised that that happens. Bill, 28 snaps, his high for the season, 47%, also a high for the season for him. So he's moving in the right direction. This is what we asked for, right? Him to play the most snaps of any of the running backs, for him to touch the ball the most of any running backs. Remember, I said the number for me is 15. That's how many times I want to see him touch it in this game. 15. He touched it 16 times. Luke McCaffrey, 23 snaps offensively, 39 overall, 39%, excuse me. So good for him as he continues to take advantage of opportunities. Same can be said for Jalen Lane, 20 snaps for him, 34%. He continues to take advantage of the snaps he's getting. Ben Sinnott is an unsung hero. He don't catch shit. He's turning into another John Bates. I'll take it. I know you guys, I told you guys when we drafted him, you didn't want to hear this because it was a second-round pick, and I get that. But I told you what Adam Peters saw him as. The only difference right now is we don't throw him the football like they throw Kyle Juszczyk the football in San Francisco. That's the only difference. But we use him like Kyle Juszczyk. And he is blocking his face off right now. You go see these Bill runs, you're going to see 82 in the mix. There's one run where he just mollywops the defender in the hole. And Bill cuts off of his block and gets to the outside. Mollywops the dude. I mean, put his dick absolutely all the way in the dirt. I know y'all don't love Ben Sinnott not being a pass catcher, but he's doing Ullman-like work in the run game. Trent Scott continues to get a ton of reps as we look to go, super big on the offensive line. 16 plays for him. Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols each have 15 snaps on the field. McNichols had a big third down conversion. So shout out to J-Mac for continuing to get it done. He was also a captain on Sunday. Tay Martin, 14 reps. I want to see Tay Martin's snaps go up and Chris Moore's snaps go down. This is what it should look like. Tay Martin, Chris Moore. Tay Martin, Chris Moore. That's what I'm looking for. One going up, the other going down. Till we get our guys back. More Tay Martin, please. Less Chris Moore. I don't want more of Chris Moore. And then Colson Yankoff. With John Bates back, obviously his snap count decreases a ton. Only 3 snaps for him, which is to be expected. So you go to the defensive snap counts. As you can see, 67 snaps defensively. We need, which is better than what it was last week, but we need that number to decrease so that the offensive snaps can increase, right? Nonetheless, Quan, Revo, and Wagner played all 67 snaps. Luvu, Lat, and both played 99% of the snaps, only missing 1 apiece. And Trey Amos played all but 2 snaps defensively for 97%. So those are the guys that were out there pretty much the entirety of the game. Mike Sainristil, 55 snaps, 82%. Deron Payne, 39 snaps, 58%. Javon Kinlaw, 37%, or 37 snaps, 55%. Let me just stop right there and say, that's more like it. Last week, Javon Kinlaw wasn't on the field nearly enough. It was a damn travesty. Deron Payne played a ton of snaps last week. That's what it should be. Those are our 2 most impactful interior defensive linemen. You need to act accordingly. Stop taking those dudes off the field to give them rest that they don't need. We just had a long offensive drive. They don't need to be off the field. I know you want to get Johnny Newton and you want to roll with a deep crew and you want to put Eddie Goldman on the field, and that's cool. Reserve that for times where the defense was just on the field on a 9, 8, 9, 10 play drive, and the offense comes on and immediately gives up a 3 and out. And now they're back on the field. Okay, yeah, stick Johnny Newton and all those boys out there. Eddie Goldman and Jalen Holmes. Yeah, put those boys out there. But if we just came off the field and then the offense goes and puts the drive together, put Deron Payne and Javon Kinlaw back on the damn field. They did that in this game. Jacob Martin, 35 snaps. He's effectively your new starter, right, at defensive end. We did see Preston Smith for the first time. You probably didn't even notice 52 out there, but he was out there. He did make a tackle too. But Jacob Martin's your new de facto starter, opposite of Dorrance Armstrong, who played 30 snaps, 45%. Super effective 30 snaps, by the way. Like, all over the place. Von Miller, 29 snaps, 43%. He was effective. He's more of a mess cleanupper now. Like, he doesn't create a lot of messes, but he's there to clean the shit up that somebody else creates, which is fine. I'd like to see him create more messes of his own. But with that said, look, Jacob Martin got a beautiful pressure, and Von Miller was like, yeah, let me get a piece of that sack, bro. Let me get a piece of that. I think we saw like Kinlaw, force the Herbert to move backwards, and Von was like, yeah, let me get that. Let me get that. Eddie Goldman, 27 snaps, 40%. Johnny Newton, 26 snaps, 39%. Again, that's what it should be. Those guys are right around 40, and Deron and Kinlaw are around 60. That's the way it should be. Not 50-50, not 52, 46, no, 60, 40, right? That's the discrepancy I'm looking for. Something in that range. Jalen Holmes, 19 snaps, 28%. Preston Smith, 16 snaps, 24%. The big one, Jordan McGee, who had not played more than 4 defensive snaps all season long in any given game, 12 snaps, 18%, and they were a very impactful 18%, 12 snaps. Again, I want to see that number continue to rise. Again, I'm not telling you that Jordan McGee should be playing 30, 40 snaps a game, but I would like to see that number at 15, 16 next week, especially if the number of plays doesn't decrease defensively. If that number of plays goes down to 63 or 62 next week, then he can stay right at 12 because it'll mean he was in the game for about 24% of the snaps. So it will actually be an increase in the amount of times he was out there, not the number, but the percentage, right? So that's what I want to see from Jordan McGee is the percentage continue to rise. If the snap counts go down for the defense as a whole, let it stay right there at 12 for him. If the snap counts go up, somehow we're on the field. We shouldn't be on the field for it. Something has gone horribly wrong if we're on the field for 73 snaps. But if that were to occur, then Jordan McGee needs to be on the field for 18, 19 snaps to match that change. But that's what we want to see. And then Darnell Savage continues to work his way in at safety position. 11 snaps for him, 16% for Darnell Savage. So let me see. I might be missing a couple of guys up here. Yeah, let me shrink this down a bit. Yeah, Percy Butler with 2 snaps for 3%, and Noah Igbenogany 1 snap, 1%. So to me, this is the way it should look moving forward. This is the way it should look. And you'll get some guys. Preston Smith may start to play a little bit more. Jordan McGee may need to play a little bit more. Savage may play a little bit more. But for the most part, this is what it should look like moving forward, right? All right. So let's talk about what DQ said at his press conference today. So this is a pretty long one, too. This was a 20-minute presser from DQ. You win games and people are excited to talk when you win, right? It's a lot different vibe when you win a game like the way we did yesterday. People are a lot more vocal. So DQ's victory presser started off with him highlighting just how important of a play Quan Martin made last night and how we cannot lose sight of the importance of that play and what it meant to that game and how everything changed after that play. I think we all acknowledge that in the moment, in real time. That game was getting away from us. Anybody watching at home was thinking, oh, shit, here we go again. We're about to get our asses curb stomped. That Quan Martin play, you could argue, and we'll see what it means 3-4 weeks down the road. But if this team gets hot and runs off 4 out of their next 5, we'll come back to the Quan Martin play and we'll say that was a turning point. John Keim, I saw his show the other day, and he equated it, John's always showing his age, to the Marty season when we started 0-5, and we're playing the Panthers, and we're down 14-0, and LeVar picks off a pass in the flats, runs it back for a touchdown. They come back, win that game, ultimately win 8 out of their final 11, finish the season 8-8. Should have made the playoffs that year if we had a field goal kicker that could kick. But nonetheless, that was the turning point in that season. We may look back on the Quan Martin play. You're 2-2 on the season. You're struggling with your identity. DQ said you had a great week of practice, but he was saying, oh, shit. And he said this after the game, like, oh, shit. We just had this great week of practice, and it's not transferring over. Like, I did not expect this slow start, but yet here we go again, down 10-0. I didn't see this coming. But he never lost resolve because of the week that they had just put in. And he was like, they're going to find a way to overcome this slow start. And the Quan Martin play was what really did it. And he really emphasized that in his press conference to start. Then he was asked about Bill and what does he see in Bill? And he talked about Bill's vision and his cuts. And he said how violent, he talks about how violent Bill's cuts are, but the vision to be able to press, see the hole, develop, cut, get skinny, do whatever needs to be done to come out on the other side of the blocks. But he also took that time to emphasize how good the whole entire running back room has been. J-Mac, as I mentioned, had a big catch and run on a third down and longs like 3rd and 9. And he breaks a tackle, stiff arms a guy, gets up the sideline, and gets about 10 or 11 on 3rd and 9. So that was huge, right? And a great play by Jaden to be decisive with that football. The Chargers were coming with pressure. He saw his outlet, got it to him not only in timing and rhythm, but also out in front so J-Mac didn't have to adjust to the football, slow him down so that defender could track him. He got it to him in a way where J-Mac could immediately turn up the field, out-leverage that defender, stiff arm him, turn the corner, and get up the field. That's a great use of your check down, right? He talked about Marshawn Lattimore in his game. He said the fumble recovery was huge. He said he was technically sound. He played well. I don't think a lot of passes were thrown in his direction, but it seems like every other week, Marshawn Lattimore is out of sight, out of mind, right? Which means this upcoming week against the Bears, he's probably going to get some work. So hopefully he's ready. But DQ said he was a lot more technically sound in this game. And I was this close to my damn pick 6 that I told y'all he was going to get. Depth of the D-line he was asked about. And he, they basically framed the question as, like, you told us this D-line was going to be, like, the heartbeat of this defense, and it's coming to fruition. And he said, I'll take it a step further. This defense is anchored by the 2 defensive tackles inside. Those guys set the tone for what we do defensively in Daron Payne and Javon Kinlaw. And JK and Payne have been absolutely spectacular to start this season off. Payne with another one of these sniff out. His IQ has just gotten sharper and sharper over the years. You can't throw screens around him anymore. He sniffs them shits out. Remember we talked about this against the Raiders? He sniffed out the Brock Bowers to the flats, tackled him for a loss. He sniffed out the screen to the running back, Omarion Hampton, early in this game, tackled him for about a 4, 5, 6-yard loss. You can't run screens around this dude. He knows something is up, and he's just, all right, I'm going to just run with this dude. And JK was just violent in this game, like blowing shit up. He was just a man amongst boys in this game. I think this rivals week 1 against the Giants in terms of his effectiveness. He was massive in this game. Like, they couldn't block him. So he talked about those 2 in particular being the anchors of this defense and that D-line. He talked about Jordan McGee, and he said, shout out to Joe Witt Jr. for putting in a package with Jordan McGee in it. Like, they had talked about him on special teams and how he was really making an impact there. But, Joe Witt was determined to try to get him on the field in some capacity defensively. They put in a couple of packages for him, and you felt his speed. DQ joked about how he missed the sack, which he did. They cleaned it up, though. They ended up getting him down, the rest of the defense. But that was his sack. And he said McGee was pissed off that he didn't get it, which he should be, because he did all the work there. Then he had the big play down by the goal line. He was just flying around, man. You saw 58 on the field and you felt his speed. And they want to see more of that from him, right? Luke McCaffrey talked about Luke taking advantage of the opportunity, but he said Luke is a competitor. And he said the thing that they love about Luke is, whatever you ask him to do, he's going to do it. And he continues to bring up the Raiders game, scores the touchdown, and then the Falcons game, scores the touchdown, and on the ensuing kickoff goes down and makes a special team tackle. And so he's like, this dude is the ultimate competitor. And that's a hell of a catch. Like, who are we kidding? That catch was ridiculous by Luke McCaffrey. They talked about Jaden's lessons learned being out. And he said the only thing worse than being hurt is not taking any lessons from being hurt. And he said it was good to see the work that they put in with Jaden and all of the things that they talked about and discussed being put to use on the field. Him getting down, him throwing the football away, him keeping himself out of harm's way, which I actually think Jaden's done a really good job throughout his career of doing. I only think he got hurt in that particular instance because he was looking behind him and not tracking what was going on in front of him. So worried about Michael Parsons tracking him down from behind. And so that's uncharacteristic of him. Normally his head is forward because he's not worried about somebody behind him catching him. Once he turns the corner on guys, he's not worried about you catching up to him. But in that particular instance, Michael Parsons is a different animal. He knew it. He was worried and he got because he wasn't looking ahead and instead looking in his rear view mirror, got him. But they talked about him learning lessons, which you could tell. You know, he slid, he threw the ball away, and he kept himself out of harm's way for the most part. There were a couple of times where, it's Jaden, right? He's going to get tackled. He's going to take a hit. You're like, yeah, you didn't necessarily need to do that, but it's Jaden, right? He did give us a Terry McLaurin update of some sort, right? It wasn't a lot, but similar to last Monday when he said the arrow was trending upward for those guys. He said that Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, and they're optimistic is the word that he used for those guys' availability on Monday. He said Sam Cosmi, Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, all will be reevaluated Wednesday. They will figure out if there's a plan that they can put in place for them to show that they are ready. And he said if they're not, then of course they won't put them on the field. But he says the extra day definitely helps, which is what I've been harping on. That extra day could be the difference between these guys playing and not playing. And he said they're going to figure out a plan for them on Wednesday, whether they continue to work on the side field and they'll need another week, or this is the week that the cavalry arrives. So we'll get an update on Wednesday. He talked about Bill's usage rate, and he said that Bill is a guy that they feel really good about, but they're not going to overwork him. But they do feel like he's continuing to grow, and they feel like they can put more and more and more on his plate. And even with the fumble, they felt like he came back and bounced back from that really well, and they went right back to him. I was so proud of them for going right back to Bill. I thought that they were going to, I said, we're going to see C-Rod, aren't we? And they said, nope, going back. And I'm so glad. I wanted them to go back to the rookie, and I'm so glad that they did. So there's a chance we could see Bill's usage rate go up, but I think they want to keep him somewhere in that 15 to 18 range. I don't think they want him touching it. That's why every time Bill's brought up, DQ brings up the entire running back room, because they don't want people to lose sight of the fact that this is still running back by committee, and we're not going to overwork the young fella, although he was really, really successful in this game. He talked about play style and identity and how important that was in establishing that in this game. And he said they had a great week of practice. He felt like they had gotten back to who they were. And he was a little bit shocked by the start, but because of the work they had put in during the course of the week, he was unwavered. He remained unwavered in his willingness to believe that they would find a way to show who we really truly were. And it was fun to watch that play out. We literally reestablished our identity on Sunday, and we needed that in the worst way. He talked about the run game and how the offensive line, everybody can pull. I'm been so impressed with Chris Paul's movement skills this year. He went from essentially a mummy, a statue, somebody that couldn't move, to a guy that's getting out on these runs. He had a pivotal block along with Tyler Biadasz on the first Bill touchdown run. That shit's a thing of beauty, right? Paul gets a piece of the defensive player, then Biadasz finishes him off, and then goes out and gets the next defender, and just and it's just, when I say it's a thing of beauty, it's a thing of beauty. And then so he talked about everybody's ability to move on the offensive line and pull and get out in front, and then Jaden's impact on the run game. Obviously, you got to add him in as someone you got to contend with and deal with. So now you got to deal with all 11 as a part of the run game as opposed to just 10. Not that Mariota wasn't a big part of the run game, but he wasn't as willing to run I felt like, as Jaden is. And he's not as big of a threat as Jaden is in the run game. Communication on defense was a big key this week. And I told you last week that was the worst defensive communication I've seen. So to see them clean it up in the manner that they did, that was something that really made me smile, because it had to happen. We could not continue on the defensive side communicating the way that we had in week 4, or else we were going to continue to be a bottom feeding defense. And so he talked about what they did in practice. He said instead of turning up the crowd noise and emphasizing how loud it was going to be, he turned all that shit off because he wanted the communication to be front and center. They focused on that. They prioritized that. And you saw a difference in the way they came out and communicated in this game. He talked about Mikey's play overall. And he said that, despite the mistake that Mikey had on the opening drive with the field goal, Mikey played well. He tackled. He had a big tackle on special teams. He had the big tackle in the hole on the running back where he scooped him and dumped him. He had the 40-yard play. He scooped up Justin Herbert and dumped him. Like, Mikey was active down around the line of scrimmage. Mikey was active all game. And then obviously the interception was huge. So Mikey's starting to make those plays that we thought he would. That's 2 consecutive weeks with a Mike Sainristil interception. He's starting to do the things that we thought he was going to do this season. He's starting to do them. So his play is starting to turn up a bit. Debo's production. So Ben Standing asked the question, and I think he's starting to ask a bunch of questions in a way that they don't appreciate. And so he did it again by bringing up Debo and basically saying Debo's the only receiver that you guys have that teams respect and care about and have to defend. And DQ's response was, well, I don't agree with you first and foremost on that part. But to speak to Debo's competitiveness and his production, he said Debo is not only the most competitive player on the team, one of the most competitive players on the team, he's one of the most competitive players in the NFL. And so what he brings to the table from a juice standpoint, what he's able to do from a versatility standpoint, he talked about how they use him, how he was used in San Francisco versus how they use him here. And then he talked about, all the different things that you have to respond to. Like one of the runs, he's like, we had Debo on some fast action to the flat. You got to respond to that. You can't just let Debo run over there unattended to. We'll throw it to him. He's a decoy on this particular play, but if we see you're not going out there with him, guess what we're going to do? We're going to run that shit back, and we're just going to throw it to Debo, right? So you got to respect Debo, motion, fast out to the flats. And now that's shifting all these guys over here, and the run's going to the opposite side. And so there's so many dimensions to what Debo does, and he's producing at a high level. And so he said he's such a competitive person. I can't wait to get him back on kickoffs, even though, Luke is doing a solid job. I can't wait to get Debo back on kickoffs. Then he talked about Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey's usage rate. And he said, they're continuing to get, he said, but you got to understand, they play special teams too. So you don't want to overwork them on offense. But, we're going to continue to try to get the most out of these guys. And he said, we really like what they're doing with the opportunities that they're getting. Because everybody, including the media, wants to see Chris Moore on the field less. So, hey, why not play these guys more? And he's like, well, they got other roles. They play a lot of special teams for us. We don't want to overwork them. I hear you, but I ain't trying to hear that shit. Get Chris Moore off my damn field ASAP. And then he talked about Bobby Wagner's presence and just him being a leader on the field, a captain, the quarterback of the defense. He's the guy that gets everybody lined up. He's the guy that, just makes a ton of plays on the field. He's the guy that blitzes and attacks the quarterback, attacks the line of scrimmage. Just Bobby being Bobby, right? So there is that. So that is going to do it for me today, but we do have a few comments, so let's get to those quickly. Antoine N, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Antoine and some love. Welcome him with open arms. Show him what it's like to be a member of the MOBB. Welcome to the squad, Antoine N. Navy Ramjet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Navy Ramjet writes, blessings to you and the family, Lou. Likewise, as always. I so rarely catch life and all. Hey, you got a small little one, man. And life come at you fast, man. Enjoy those times, right? Had to drop a quick hashtag raise hell and what's up, my dog. Keep being great, Lou. I appreciate you. You keep being great. Navy Ramjet, man. Can't thank you enough for the support. Navy Ramjet, double up. Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, hearing DQ let the team have it at halftime was cathartic. The sloppy penalties, etc., needed to be addressed. As chewing or bench a series, celebrate. Yeah, he got after him at halftime. It was said after the game. It was said at his press conference. He had some choice words for the players because he knew they could play better. So he had some choice words for them at halftime. And again, they were already trending in the right direction, but they just needed a little nudge, and he gave them that nudge at halftime. Ed B, thank you for being a member for 49 months. Celebrate! Who writes, big win, but on to the next. F Adam Rank and the Bears. Yeah, well, you know he's a massive Bears fan and one of the biggest Commander haters in the game. So this is a double whammy, right? You get to continue to keep the Bears down where they belong, but simultaneously gut punch one of the biggest Commander haters in the game all at once. There's nothing better than that. So, yeah, I look, big win. We're going to celebrate this big win. It ain't on to the Bears yet. That's a Monday night game. We got plenty of time to attack that game and talk about all the things that surround it. Let's just enjoy this, man. Let's just enjoy this dub and let's just stay in this space. These NFL seasons, they happen so fast. You got to enjoy these, man. You got to enjoy these. Before you know it, it'll be Thanksgiving. Next thing you look up, it's Christmas and this shit is almost over. Let's just enjoy it, right? King 202, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, how can we stop the running back from getting open? Last game, lucky the quarterback missed that he was wide open on the play running up the sideline. Yeah, look, man, these are things that we're going to have to continue to get better at. Like, that's why you improve with a win. Like, you don't think they're going to watch that? You don't think they already saw that today? You don't think they went over that with the team today? Right? Like, they come back and they watch film the day after the game. Yes, we won the game, but there's a lot of shit. The second and long is still a problem. We gave up a big 40-yard run to Justin Herbert. You had a player streaking down the sideline for a touchdown. That's the second week in a row that the pressure on a quarterback or the quarterback not seeing it. Last week, it wasn't the pressure on Michael Penix. He just didn't see that he had Bijan Robinson wide open on the first possession for a touchdown. Or else he would have got it to him sooner instead of him underthrowing it and it ended up being incomplete and they had to settle for a field goal. That should have been an easy touchdown. Bijan was wide open. This week, you had Amarian Hampton wide open down the sideline, and he just couldn't get it to him. Too much pressure on him. He ended up getting sacked on the play. We got shit to clean up, but they're going to continue to work on it. It's a work in progress. But we got to clean that shit up because, again, against a better team, better protection up front, he's going to find that. He's going to find that play. So we got to be better. You're not wrong. Sean R. HTTR. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I'm not a big fan of the Luke pick, as you know. Oh, I know. Okay. I will give Luke his flowers for sure. That catch. I have the apology box. I feel like this is going towards the apology box. I'm going to reach into the apology box. And I'm going to read said apology. This is a big one. You have been the biggest Luke McCaffrey hater this side of the Atlantic. So this is a big apology here. It reads, I will give Luke his flowers. For sure. That catch was the most impressive thing he has done for this team in my eyes. Give him praise. Praise hand emoji. That is music to my and Luke's ears. All he wants is a chance to prove his worth. And he's getting said chance, and he's proving it on a weekly basis. That's all he's ever asked for. And all I ever asked for was just patience. Not to jump to conclusions, but just patience. I'm glad this is all coming together nicely. Thank you for your penance, Sean R. I truly do appreciate it. That was very big of you. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Metaphor writes, Lou, isn't it refreshing to enjoy a Victory Monday? Yes, it is. Yes, it is very refreshing. I must say, I enjoy these quite a bit. I can get used to these. Last year, these became somewhat normal. This year, not so much. I'd like to get back to the normal feeling of Victory Monday, Victory Tuesday, Victory Friday, Victory Monday. These are all things that we're going to encounter because we play on various days of the week this year. I'd like to see this become more of the norm than an outlier or an every other week occurrence, right? But yeah, this feels pretty good. This feels great even. Victory Monday. Celebrate! Anyway, I digress. I know that there were some early supers from last stream that we didn't get to. So I'm gonna address those tomorrow on the show. We got plenty of time on Tuesday. There's nothing going on. There's no DQ. There's no press conferences. So we'll address those missed supers tomorrow on the show. In addition to looking at where the Commanders are in the power rankings, take a look at the NFC East now. We got to start doing that as we are now through the first month of the season. So we're going to start taking a look at the division because things are heating up. Cowboys are, starting to get better. They're playing a lot weaker competition, so it's going to allow them to stack a couple of wins here. But we got to take care of our business, but we'll see them coming up here very shortly. And we can, definitely derail the momentum that they're trying to build. But they're playing better football. Obviously, the Eagles suffered their first defeat. So we'll take a look at the NFC East and all of that and more tomorrow on the show. So that is going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on this installment of Commanders Nightly News. Real quick word from our sponsor. We'll come back on the other side and then we'll get out of here.
Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper.
Quick side note. A little bit of somber news. Our old friend Antonio Gibson, a.k.a. Gibby, suffered a season-ending ACL tear last night versus the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. That hurts my heart. Love Gibby. Love watching him have an impact for that Patriots football team. He was a good dude here, and we wished him nothing but the best and a speedy recovery for Antonio Gibson. That sucks, man. It really, truly does. We'll get to watch one of our old friends tonight, De'Ami Brown. He's been playing well for Jacksonville. He did get injured, missed last week's game against San Francisco. He'll be returning tonight. I expect to see Diami do some damage tonight in the game. That said, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Victory Monday installment of Commanders Nightly News. Celebrate! We just got a statement win and got our swag back, our identity back, and most importantly, we have just put together a blueprint on how we need to get down and conduct business moving forward. So let's see if they can wash, rinse, and repeat. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone.